So thank you all so much for coming today to PACE's annual conference. This year, we're focusing on putting evidence into action to advance equity in California. Gathering here today in this room, we have a lot to celebrate. We're coming out of a period of incredible transformation in California education, and it seems heading into another one. Under the leadership of Governor Brown, we've seen tremendous change. Over the past 10 years, California has made significant changes to its K-12 public school system, including adopting new academic standards, transforming its approaches to funding and accountability, and shifting toward a more decentralized system of governance and finance. Taken together, these big reforms and the many accompanying small ones that go with them have been a sea change for education policy. The Common Core standards have pushed our students to think differently and our educators to teach differently. The local control funding formula allocated more money to schools that need it most and gave flexibility to local leaders so that they can choose how to spend their money on things that are most effective in their context. And the new accountability structures, including the Local Control Accountability Plan, the California School Dashboard, the Every Student Succeeds Act even, are designed to help support this local control, engaging stakeholders around how to help districts and schools improve on multiple measures, and building the structures to realize the vision of these reforms, which in essence is to achieve continuous improvement at scale across California. Despite these improvements, we still have a lot of work to do. In September of last year, we released Getting Down to Facts 2, a collaborative project bringing together over 100 researchers to take stock. What is going well in California education and where do we still need to improve? Collectively, we found that while California is on the right track, we still have a long way to go. Our research identified key priorities that we need to focus on in the years ahead. These are big, thorny issues that need to be addressed, and some of the priorities that we identified include adequately funding our schools, improving access to high-quality early childhood education, addressing large unfunded pension liabilities that are crippling our schools and districts, developing longitudinal data systems that inform educational improvement, increasing funding for special education, funding school facilities, and building the system-wide capacity to support continuous improvement at scale. Solving these problems will take probably the next 10 years. It's a lot of work, but it's something that we can feel optimistic about. In the 25 days since Governor Gavin Newsom took office, he signaled his investment in California's public education system. I'm sure you've seen some of these headlines, but what they signal is a lot of putting the right people in the seats to be able to focus on the things that we need to in education policy. Chris Perry, for example, is a senior advisor for implementation of early childhood initiatives. Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, California's Surgeon General, has a national reputation for looking at the effects of childhood trauma on health, so really looking across systems. And his new Chief of Staff, Ann O'Leary, has a long history of championing improvements to children's health and well-being. These appointments together signal a strong dedication to education. But there we go. It's not just talk. There are also going to be real dollars put to these things, or that's the expectation. The budget proposal released in January puts a stake in the ground on these issues. It includes over $60 billion in state funds for K-12 schools. This includes money for new early childhood education seats, planning for universal preschool, new investments in early childhood facilities and the workforce, a $2 billion increase for the local control funding formula, planning for the development of a longitudinal data system, $576 million for special education, $906 million for school facilities, a $3 billion one-time payment to address pension liabilities, and investment in the system of support to build the capacity for continuous improvement. Of course, this is just a budget proposal. The budget bill will be reviewed in each house in the upcoming months, revised in May 2019, and signed in July. There's a lot of work that needs to happen between this and real policy, and it's all of our job in this room to continue to bring evidence into the process. And it's critical now more than ever because our goal is really big here in California. We've taken the idea of multiple measures extremely seriously. We measure and hold schools accountable for whether students come to school, how they're disciplined, how they perform in English and math, whether they're learning English, whether they graduate ready for college and career, and not just the outcomes, but also the inputs, engagement, climate, conditions for learning. And our goal is to achieve these outcomes for all kids, regardless of their race, disability status, parents' income, zip code, language status, housing status. This is a huge challenge for a state as large and complex as ours. We serve 6.2 million students, and our biggest county, which is Los Angeles, has more Title I schools than 38 states. So just to put into perspective the scope and scale of the challenge for California. We also have incredible diversity across the state on many dimensions. We have some areas that are very urban, some that are very rural. We have some that are very impoverished and some that are very wealthy, and the list goes on. So meeting this goal of strong outcomes for all students is no small feat. It will require everyone working together toward the same goal, and this vision of collaboration undergirds the design of this conference. Now more than ever, we need to pool our expertise. Those of us who work in research, policy, and practice all bring different knowledge, skills, and perspective to the table, and realizing this vision will require that we work together. In PACE's view, the intersection of these circles is where magic happens, and we're trying to spark some of that magic here today. It's also critical that we collaborate across levels. Ultimately, educational improvement is about what happens in classrooms. We all know that to be true. But that doesn't mean that what happens in schools, districts, counties, and at the state level doesn't matter. In fact, it matters a lot to achieving this vision of quality at scale. But what it means is that all of these levels need to work together and in the service of helping improve implementation at each level. Our sectors must work together as well. We're notoriously siloed in education, but we can't achieve our goals if we don't work together. What happens in children's early years is very important to what happens in K-12 and the K-12 setting. What happens in K-12 is critical for the opportunities that are afforded to students in higher education and in the workforce. And because students' basic needs undergird all of their experiences, their life outcomes cannot be improved without our education systems working with health and welfare as well. And let's not forget various stakeholders. All voices must be part of this process, including parents and students, business leaders, educators, communities, and advocates. And finally, because our state is huge, all counties and regions must work together as a state. We all must strive for this greater goal for California. So it's these principles, collaboration, working together, making decisions based on evidence, that undergird the design of this conference. If you'd like to pull out your agenda, I'm going to give an overview of what we can expect today, and you can follow along. We're going to start with a keynote address by Ed Manansala, who will bring these principles alive with his perspective as a county superintendent and president of the California County Superintendents Educational Service Association, or CSESA. We have two breakouts at 10:30 and 1:45, where we've invited leaders from education policy, practice, and research to discuss the challenges and opportunities from where they sit. After lunch, we'll present the result of the PACE USC Rossier poll, bringing another critical voice, which is voters, into the room here today. And we'll wrap up our day with a closing keynote by Linda Darling-Hammond on what's next for the state in this new era of education policy. I'm going to take just a minute to talk about the breakouts to orient you to what to expect in there and what you might like to go to. But just a logistical note first. For each of the breakouts, you choose just one, and they'll be videotaped and posted after. So don't worry if you can't choose, you'll be able to access that information. Our slides are actually up on the website already if you want to take a look. Thank you for your feedback at our last conference. That's something that we did in response to help to facilitate your learning. And the rooms are different sizes. So if a room is full, please go to a different room. We promise that all of the breakouts will be very engaging and very interesting. We've designed these breakouts to add evidence into some of the most important policy issues that we've identified, some starting from getting down to facts and some extending. In breakout 1, we are going to have a session on quality teaching and learning in pre-K classrooms. That's here in the Magnolia Ballroom. We'll have a breakout on the promising practices in cross-sector database development and use. That's upstairs in Alder. And then a session on the promising practices and stakeholder engagement, also upstairs. In breakout 2, we'll have a panel that focuses on the importance of intersegmental connections in K-12 and higher education to support college and career readiness. That's here in Magnolia. And given the fact that chronic absence data was just released on the California School Dashboard, we'll also have speakers talk about what we know from research, policy, and practice about how to reduce chronic absenteeism. That's upstairs in Sycamore. And finally, we have a panel that discusses continuous improvement at each level of the system and new developments for our state. In each of these breakouts, the speakers have been chosen to represent different aspects of our education system and all of the diversity of our state across those many dimensions that I highlighted. So as you go through the conference today, we have some guiding questions that will be raised in different ways throughout the plenary sessions, throughout the breakouts, and just want to plant these seeds for you as you think about what you're learning today. What can we do to support quality at scale? What is my role from where I sit? And what would I recommend to others who sit at a different level of the system? So what can I do? What do I need others to do? And how can we together realize this vision for California? You'll be given plenty of time throughout the day to explore these questions in the breakouts, in breaks. We have a nice long lunch period, so please take that opportunity. And in each of these conversations and throughout, please get to know one another. Much of the diversity that we highlighted is represented here in all of you that are attending. Meet somebody new. Talk about the path forward with someone who has a different perspective. As you see here, we have such broad representation just on one of these dimensions, which is the roles. We have a lot of people here from county offices of education and K-12 schools and districts, state agencies, higher education, research, support organizations from the legislature, advocates, journalists, professional associations, and foundations are represented here as well. So there's a lot of ways that we can cross-pollinate here. And to facilitate this ongoing conversation, we're going to share everybody's contact information with other attendees at the conference afterwards. That won't be posted on our website. That'll go out in an email. Please let Sean Bernardo know if you do not want to be part of this or if you don't want to be photographed today, because we'll have a photographer in the room as well to capture some of the amazing learning that happens. And please don't forget to share what you're learning here on social media. We can make our learning here a public good.